Nico Heischer's tied for the league lead in goals. A defenseman's tied for the league lead in points. And Luca leads the league in goals saved above expected. Just as everybody expected.
This season in the NHL has been a really weird one where like superstar players have started off a little slow or they might be hurt and we don't have those like prime elite guys at the top of the leaderboards like we're always expecting and always used to, quite frankly, at this point.
And I'm sure the guys who are off to some slower starts will pick it up. And I still wouldn't be surprised if someone like Austin Matthews hits 70 goals. But on the topic of surprises, today we're going to go over the 8 biggest surprise players to kick off the 2024-25 NHL season.
And the surprise definition can mean a lot to a lot of different people. So how we took the definition of surprise for this may not be how you take it. So let us know in the comments who your surprise players are for this season so far. And if there's anyone we missed, because I'm sure we missed a lot of players. There have been a lot of great surprises, and as you'll see, a couple of bad surprises as well that we're going to go over. I think you should kick things off.
I'm going to kick it off with a surprise of the offseason, and I'm going to head over to the St. Louis Blues and talk about Philip Broberg, because not a lot of people expected GM Doug Armstrong to pull off not one, but 2 offer sheets with the Edmonton Oilers, and there's this whole thing around the NHL where it's kind of frowned upon to go out and take another team's player like that. I kind of love it. It keeps GMs on their toes. Philip Broberg, very, very high draft pick, very highly touted offensive defenseman, a lot of talent, great skater, great puck mover. Was kind of buried down the depth chart in Edmonton. Started the year in the AHL last year. When he came up, didn't get a ton of opportunity with the Oilers. We're now seeing him in full force on a team like St. Louis where he is one of the guys offensively. He's playing a lot of power play time, and he's just really off to a great start this season. And I think we're starting to see that, a lot of times the destination where you're drafted matters. If you're not getting optimal playing time, if you're not able to crack into the number 1 power play unit because there's guys like Evan Bouchard in front of you, I think that hurts development sometimes. I think a lot of people saw the potential. Not a lot of people picked him to, from day one, be as impactful of a player that he has been in St. Louis.
And I think we oftentimes forget just how long it takes for these guys to develop sometimes, these draft picks. Like, they come into the league so young, and in Broberg's case, like you're not always starting with the NHL team, obviously, and it feels like there are certain thresholds and things you have to do before it all kind of comes together sometimes. It's nice to see that it's coming together for Broberg, and I feel like Edmonton fans, especially given how their season has started and how Darnell Nurse is playing once again, could use a guy like Broberg, whereas St. Louis, they needed an injection of youth on that blue line, and they may have a stud for years to come, potentially, at least offensively speaking. We'll see how the rest of his game rounds out.
All right, who do you got for your first surprise?
I'm going to go with the guy you mentioned in the intro, but not just him, his entire line. Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and Ivan Barbashev for the Vegas Golden Knights. All 3 of them are producing a better at a point per game pace right now. You mentioned it, that Stone finally healthy, Jack Eichel's finally healthy, and Barbashev's having a career year to say the least. This trio is playing really, really well and kind of holding Vegas because outside of their line, production has been kind of slim pickings, but this first line is one of the best in hockey production-wise. What's interesting to me, though, is that when you look at some of the underlying numbers of it, they've scored 13 goals according to Natural Stat Trick as a line, and they've only been expected to score 4. So they're getting some puck luck, but when you have players like Stone and Eichel, as talented as they are, not only in the offensive end of the ice, but in the defensive end as well, very defensively responsible players, especially Stone, right? We laud him all the time for his defensive ability, and so to be reminded this year of how good of an offensive player he is in his first healthy season in 5 years it seems like, because he hasn't played a full season in what feels like forever. 60 games, if you're getting 60 games out of Mark Stone, you're a happy guy. So Vegas Golden Knights right now have one of the best lines in hockey, and it is a bit of surprise to see it all come together with every piece still intact.
For my second pick, I'm going to head over to the defending Stanley Cup champions, Anton Lundell of the Florida Panthers. It's never a great start to the season when you got guys like Alex Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk missing time, but that just presents opportunity for new guys to step up. And when you look at Lundell's career in the NHL, his rookie season, he was absolutely on fire. And ever since then, we've been picking him to, really take that jump and be that point per game player, that offensive threat. And it just has not really happened. If anything, he's kind of regressed. But this year, we're really starting to see it. And Florida Panthers fans are saying, hey, that's not 16 you're watching, that's number 15, because he has looked just as good as Alex Barkov stepping in for him while he's been out with an injury. And it's just really great to see another young player come through the ranks for these Florida Panthers. He'll be back on that third line now that Barkov is healthy, but it just gives you so much confidence that even when you're missing great players, you have guys like this that can step up. And not only is he being productive in the offensive zone, defensively, he's been incredibly shut down as well.
I wonder how long it's going to take for him to just make his way back up to the lineup, because a talent like that off to a start like this, I just wonder how long before we see a little bit of a mix up there. And I know Barkov had really high praise for him in the playoffs last year for what he did. So this is a guy that his teammates obviously think very highly of him. And to step into that role, that particular role, and not miss a beat. Like, this Panthers team is as dangerous as ever. It looks as good as ever. And that's a credit to Lundell and his talent. And I don't think we'll be seeing him on the third line for a long time. You talked about opportunity, and that's kind of the theme for this next one. I'm going to go with defenseman K'Andre Miller for the New York Rangers. He's playing on the top pair with Adam Fox. And Rangers fans may have been kind of clamoring for this for the past few years when looking at their depth chart, because Miller, in his limited minutes in seasons past with Fox, they've been their most effective pair by far as expected goals percentage goes. But Miller has kind of been anchored to Trouba in years past, and Fox has played with Lindgren and Gustafsson. And this year they finally just said, we are putting these two incredible young defensemen together. And the results have been fantastic. It's not only one of the best pairs in the NHL. Individually, both guys have been incredible. You're seeing Miller's offensive game a little more in a highlighted role playing alongside Fox. And I know it helps to have a great goalie like Igor Shesterkin back there as well if you're making some mistakes. But these two together complement each other so well. And Miller on his own, I think, deserves a lot of credit for where he came from when he initially joined this Rangers lineup to growing into a legitimate top pair defenseman, not just with Adam Fox. And it's not just because he's playing with Adam Fox, but because of his own abilities in his own right. So I think Rangers fans have been very impressed and happy to see that pair together. And it also allows guys like Braden Schneider to play with Jacob Trouba and honestly make this lineup a little more well-rounded. All right, we're halfway through the video, but if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let us know what other topics you want to see. We saw some of the ones last time. Top 25 players under 25. We are going to do that at some point, as well as 100-point scorers that never have. So those are two ideas we're kicking around. I also liked picking a retired number for every franchise, like the next one. Great ideas in the comments there.
I think we can't go through this entire video without giving love to one goaltender, and we mentioned his name off the top, Luca Dostal of the Anaheim Ducks. And it's funny when discussing a Ducks goalie, because for how long did we sit here and talk about John Gibson? He's the best young netminder in the league, and we got to get him out of Anaheim. And it just feels like we've really seen a changing of the guard now with the Ducks, because now they have a new guy who I think can really live up to that billing. And he's also in an organization where a lot of their best players are also around the same age of him and coming up at the same time, because we love to discuss just the plethora of talent that the Ducks have in their prospect pool. One thing that's always hard to find, though, is a great netminder, and he's just doing it all right now. He's getting peppered with shots, seems like every game. You brought up the goals saved above expected stat. He leads the league in that. Such a valuable number to have as a goaltender. The save percentage is, in the 92 percentile. The goals against average is great. And for a team that not a lot of people expect to be very good, a lot of the times the issues with those teams are defensively and trying to keep the puck out of the net. That hasn't been the case when Dostal's been in there for the Ducks. So a real glimmer of hope for an organization that is just really begging on a lot of these young guys to be able to sort of carry the load a little bit more and start to not only show promise, but to start to win some games.
We've got a couple more surprises each. I'm going to go with a negative surprise for my goaltender, and that's Alex Georgiev for the Avalanche, because we talked about the goal save above expected leader in Dostal. Georgiev is the leader in the worst goal saved above expected. It's the Avs just recalled Capo Kakinen. He's going to be up with the team, and I assume that he's going to be the backup and Eustace Noonan is going to be the starter going forward based on that win streak he had and was so kind of monumental in helping them solve their goalie issues, at least for the time being. I just think it's a surprise because I didn't think it could be this bad. The start of the season has just been an absolute disaster for him. And granted, it's been a little iffy at times in front of him as well, but the job of a goalie is ultimately to make saves. And sometimes your goalie is just not making saves, and he is not making saves right now. And I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if he's not trusting what he's seeing in front of him as far as his defensemen go. But when a Noonan's in net, it looks like a completely different team, and it feels calmer. Whereas when Georgiev's in net, it just feels like every shot on goal that probably won't go in does go in. And it might just be a bad stretch, and he needs some time in the AHL to kind of get some confidence with some different players in front of him. Stakes are a little less in that scenario than what the Avs have going on with all their injuries. It's an unfortunate surprise for sure, because I think he was maybe one of the best younger goalies a couple of years ago that you had high hopes for, and now I don't think he's on anyone's radar to be that and may not be the starter in Colorado any longer.
My last big surprise of the season, I want to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team that has just had it so rough with the terrible tragedy that they experienced in the offseason. I want to talk about Kirill Marchenko, someone who's been a real bright spot for this team. He's a second-round pick. Everyone loves to talk about the talent and the skill that this guy has, but the end product hasn't always been there when this guy, I remember his rookie season, he had one of like the funniest stat lines ever. I think it was 21 goals and 4 assists. He's really changed the way he's played, and he's one of those guys now, you can sense his presence when he has the puck on his stick because he's so dynamic and he looks at the players around him to make things happen. And he's over a point per game right now, and he's the leading sort of goal getter on this team. It's definitely nice to see Columbus right now, how they've kind of rallied around their situation, and they're playing some good hockey, and the young guys like this stepping up in what's just been an unimaginably tough year.
Marchenko's so fun to watch. Like, the highlights of him, and granted, like, if you haven't watched a lot of Columbus Blue Jackets, just at least watch his highlights of his goals and things like that. He's got a between the legs goal in the NHL, shootout goal a couple years ago. He did the one-hander.
Banked one off. I think it was
Sorokin. Yeah.
Sorokin's
like
head over Lama. Yeah.
The gall to even try that from that spot. Like, he had time surveyed it. Was like, I'm going to put this puck off his head and in. He is so incredibly talented, and I'm really excited for Columbus because he's going to be a fun player to watch all season long. And it's one of the best lines in hockey right now, arguably the best. Great surprise there. I think he was on my list as well, but I think he should be on everyone's list, quite frankly. My last one, Shane Gostisbehere of the Carolina Hurricanes. This is an interesting one because the Hurricanes revamped their decor this summer and this offseason, and I think when we did our tier list ranking them, we were kind of like, not feeling as high on Carolina this year. It's kind of the same thing over and over again. But the same thing is really, really good.
Yeah.
Sean Walker and Gostisbehere have been one of the best D pairings in the entire NHL, to go along with another one of the best pairings in the entire NHL, Jacob Slavin and Brent Burns, who just continue to defy age. But I think what Gostisbehere has allowed the Hurricanes to do, he's been better on the top power play unit. They put him there instead of Brent Burns, and it's paid off in a lot of different ways, and you allow Burns to go down with the number 2 unit and solidify that a little more. But in those second pair minutes, the ice is completely tilted. His Corsi for percentage, minimum 50 minutes for any defenseman, best among any defenseman in hockey. He does not give up high danger chances when he's on the ice, and they create offensively when he is. I think we've always known that Gostisbehere is this type of player. His career has taken a weird arc where he was so good offensively in Philly in his rookie year, and then went to Arizona, was in Carolina before, went to Detroit. I feel like he's had good moments here and there, but this certainly seems like it's the perfect role for him, and the Hurricanes are getting more out of him, especially for what they paid him, than guys like Orlov and Chatfield that they've signed in the past and have put them in similar roles. They have not gotten results like they are getting out of Gostisbehere. Could be a big difference maker for them going forward.
Well, there it is, our 8 biggest surprises thus far in the 2024-25 NHL season. Do you agree? Let us know. Is there someone we missed? Once again, let us know in the comments. And as always, let us know what video you want to see us do next, and we'll see you next time.